Yup, that's me, stuck in a small steel cage with the most unfair demon this side of Fortuna. How'd I get into this situation? Well, that's a long story, friend. See, around these parts, we don't believe in upgrades. You're born how you're born. You don't get to just magically change that. So naturally, when some redcoat cowboy waltzed in and shot the Pope, and demons started cropping up throughout town more and more, I had to step up. See, this town didn't make heroes. I was just another average Joe. An average Joe with a demon arm, but that's an even longer story for another time. I didn't know it at the time, but the guy I'm punching, his name's Dante. Some call him a legendary devil hunter. Others, a son of Sparta. Me? I just knew him as the guy that shot the Pope, and it was my job to track this dirtbag down when he got away. Now this flaming ball of fun called himself Burial. Kinda ironic when you consider that's what his friends would be attending once I was done with him. I had received word that this Dante fellow fled into the mountains, so I followed him into the snow-capped peaks, found my way to the valley between them. That's where Fortuna Castle sat. Now, I had heard stories, but I'd never actually seen the place myself. Figured it couldn't hurt to take a peek inside, consider it a little break from all the running. After exploring the castle grounds, found some documents talking about hell gates, living demon armor, things like that. Now, I was never one for reading, so I was doing my damnedest to make heads or tails of whatever this stuff was. Anyways, while I was reading, this living armor looking stuff came up to me. He seemed friendly enough, so I let him be and went back to deciphering these books. But something about him just didn't sit right, and I knew he was an enemy. Could have just been his general vibe, or maybe the fact that he tried to pierce me with his lance. That might have done it. Made my way through the castle without much trouble, solving elaborate puzzles and damaging private property along the way. Ended up stumbling outside into the courtyard and wouldn't believe what I found. Whoever owned this place was keeping a damn demon frog as a pet. Who the hell does that? I didn't know what I was looking at when I wandered into this room. Some sort of giant dice game? If you asked me at the time, my hunch would have been that this seemed like something owned by some sort of evil mad scientist with a stutter, but that was just a guess. Through sheer luck and maybe a little bit of skill, I moseyed my way on to the end of this place, found myself in what looked to be the wrong end of a test chamber. And would you guess who was on the other side of the glass? Some mad evil scientist with a stutter. I knew it. It was looking like this Dante fellow was gonna have to wait. I had bigger fish to fry. This wasn't my first time throwing flying demonic sword birds at a highly resistant, tempered, and electrified window, so I knew exactly what I had to do. I couldn't quite place it, but something about this guy really bugged me. Thankfully, that wasn't the only reason I had to be annoyed at him, considering he ended up stabbing me in the chest and whatnot. I think that's just about enough to get anyone a little pissed off. I made my way to the HQ to see what all this talk of hell gates was about. Oh, and why their top scientist tried to murder me. Before I could even get inside the place, my good pal Credo met me at the door. But would you know it, before I could even talk to the guy, he turned into an angel demon thing. I guess I should have seen that coming from a religious cult that worshipped a demon as their god and whatnot. I was never one for elevators, so naturally the first thing I did was look for the stairs. But it seemed like the only way to go up was the steel cage of death. So what happens when your building becomes infested with demons and you get locked in a small steel cage with them? Well, sit back and find out. I don't really keep track of world records and such, but I think 6 hours is probably the longest elevator ride in the history of history. And that's how long it took me to get off these faulty death traps. One mean son of a bitch was waiting for me at the top. As luck would have it, This Dante fella had a pretty damn good reason for shooting the Pope in the face. On the surface, it seemed like he was all holy and good. But behind the scenes, the good Pope was doing nefarious things. He sought to become some sort of angel by harnessing demon power, however that works. And now that I was trapped inside of a giant deity statue and he was using the power of the sword of my father that I don't know about yet, things were looking pretty dicey. Dante put in the work on the outside, so that just left it up to me on the inside to get things done. Before I could reach the Pope and my sister girlfriend though, I had to fight through what were essentially memories of my journey up until this point. Think of it like a metaphysical, spiritual journey, overcoming obstacles and grief and all that. Except it was very much physical. These things hurt. Oh yeah, and I got to play dice again.
Now riddle me this. Why was he called the Savior when he couldn't even save himself? I reckon the town was a little messed up, but these are good people. They'll bounce back. As for me, well, that Dante fella let me keep this Japanese sword. And sure, my sister wife's brother is dead, but that just meant that me and her could get more alone time. So from my perspective, all was well.